This episode of the Tommy Denos podcast is brought to you by Pure Plank. Now let's talk about planking. You either love it, hate it, or wish you were better at it. That's where Pure Plank comes in. This game-changing board takes your core workouts to the next level, making planking more effective, engaging, and fun while helping you build strength, improve posture, and boost endurance. Now, I've been using it. Let me tell you, this thing works. It keeps your planks engaged, challenges your stability, and helps you see real results faster. Plus, it's compact and easy to use, so you can plank anytime, anywhere. And because you're a loyal listener, I've got a special deal for you. Use my code TommyDenosPod, that's TommyDenospod, at checkout for a discount on your order. So stop planking the old way and get on board with Pure Plank by heading over to gopureplank.com right now and feel the difference. Pure Plank, get on board.
Yo, what up? It's the Free-Throw Doctor. Welcome to the gym where the players top notch.
Happy St. Patrick's Day and welcome to a very special edition of the Tommy Denos podcast. Yes, today is St. Patrick's Day, but that also means that this week is the beginning of March Madness and the NCAA basketball tournament. So for this episode, we are joined by the free throw doctor himself and a man I'm very excited to talk to today about the tournament, but also about basketball training, specifically the art, science, and frustration of the free throw. Coach Keith Coleman has set out to develop a method that works. He's taught coaches how to help players at every level increase their shooting and free throw percentage and has been widely recognized for his success in doing so. They don't call him the Mr. Miyagi of shooting for nothing. Coleman's method is unique as it is targeted at helping coaches help their players find their shot again. By helping coaches improve their players' form, balance, motion, and other issues, he can single-handedly improve shooting percentages at a quick rate. With Coach Coleman's help, coaching staffs teach players how to regain confidence in their jump shots and free throw shooting. So with that, Coach Coleman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let me ask you a question. So this is my first time hearing of a free throw doctor, someone who specializes in free throw shooting. Just kind of talk to me about how you got into this kind of narrow field of basketball training.
Well, it started, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
But it started when I was in the military, and we were on deployment. And when we were on deployment, it's not like it is today where they have access to cell phones and so forth. And so we did a lot of reading. And so I got a hold of a book for artillery. And when you start to think about artillery and how they use projectiles to hit the target, and it talked about the different qualities and elements of being able to hit the target regularly. You have to take in the wind, you have to take in soil, you have all these different things. It's about 8 or 9 different elements that they have to look at before that. And I said, wouldn't that be kind of neat if you could do that with free throws?
Interesting, okay.
And so based off of that, because in high school I shot about 90%, so I really had a hard time wondering why people struggle with free throw shooting. So because of that, I started to do some, thinking about it, and then you have to, start at the feet. Mm-hmm. As Michael Jordan, used to say, it's in the shoes.
It's in the shoes.
So it started with that, and then you just kind of work your way up. And one of the things when you start thinking about being a free-throwologist and studying it, you have to have a lab. And so where do you get a lab? Where are you going to get people to shoot enough free throws in different situations that you will be able to take time to analyze it? And so for me, my lab was AAU basketball. Mm-hmm. You go to the gym on the weekend during the summer, and you're going to see hundreds of free throws shot, made, missed, and at different times of the game. And that's part of it, to understanding that every free throw that is shot is going to be different based not only on the player, but the time in the game.
Okay.
So starting to think about, you start looking at, are they shooting it under pressure? Are they shooting it when they're tired? Or are they just shooting at the beginning? And so as we know, games, for the most part, even though the colleges have it in, first half, second half, but it used to be broken up in the quarters, like it still is with the women's game. And so when you start looking at the quarters, how are they shooting in the first quarter? How do they adjust in the second quarter, third, and fourth? And so you start looking at that, and that's where I started to really start to dive into analyzing, free throw shooting.
Coming from the title of one of your books, let me ask you this question. Why can't people shoot free throws? That's one of the title of your books. But why can't some people shoot free throws? You think it's easy enough. Like hitting a golf ball. The golf ball's right there. Well, free throw shooting, the basket's right there. No one's guarding, no one's around you. Why can't so many people hit free throws consistently?
Some of it just starts with the training. So that's one of the things that I had to look at. When I was in school, and even today, when I'm talking to coaches, I say, well, tell me how you are training free throw shooting. Well, what they do is they say right before we get ready, let's let them go on the water break. We tell them this is what you have to do. Go and shoot 10 free throws. And 2 to 3 players will go on the basketball, one of the side hoops, and they start shooting free throws. And then they'll make 2 and then make 2 more and then so forth and so on. And then before you can go on your water break, you go to the coach who used to have a clipboard. Now they have their cell phones, and they put in the percentage. The problem with that is that 2 things. One, when they're shooting, they're just coming off of practice or running, and so they're probably going to miss or struggle with the first one. And then as they rest on the side while the other players shoot, and then so they give a false reading back to the coach. Oh, coach, I shot 8 for 10, so I'm 80%. The coach like, oh, that's great. Jonathan, go on your water break. But that really wasn't given a true feel for it. And then the other thing is when they were shooting the free throws, and something just as simple as understanding there's a picture that players see. So when you're at the free throw line, they're just not concentrating on the rim. They have all the rest of it. The backboard. For instance, when you're at a game and you're walking from one sideline, maybe you're coming from the concession stand, right, and the referee says, "Hang on, doesn't let you cross until after the free throw's been made," and then they say, "Okay, go ahead and go across."
Exactly.
Right. Same principle. They don't want any distractions. But nowadays, with distractions, people have cardboard
bumpers and all this kind of everything.
You got a little bit of everything that's going on up there, and so the distraction becomes very prevalent. So the question is, how do you practice for that? And coaches, I start to work with coaches as to how they can start simulating games so that they can learn to shoot under pressure.
Okay.
So that's part of it. And so there's so many different elements involved in it. And so that's why we can't shoot free throws.
So you talk about on your website, I've heard this before, but the idea of free-throwology. So what's kind of the philosophy behind that? Obviously, we know in school we learn that ology is a study of something, but what's your philosophy behind free-throwology? Was that a term that you coined?
No, that's actually a term that a high school student coined when I was working with their team.
Okay.
And he's like, "So you're the free throw doctor?" And I said, "Yes." And then the kid said, "He's a free-throwologist." And I was like, "I like that. That sounds good." And so I confiscated that term, and here I am today as the free-throwologist.
I love it. So I'm going to go back to coaching because I read, your blogs, and you said just aside from, the player's technique, the mental side, which we'll get into because I'm fascinated by that part, because a lot of it has to do with just coaching and being able to coach free throw shooting.
Right.
So when you approach coaches, what's your approach to them when it comes to, saying, "Hey, here's what here's what you need to be doing as far as coaching the right way."
Well, when I go to coaches, let's just say I'm doing a coaches clinic. And so coaches, as you already know, have big egos. And so they already know it. I know everything. I don't even know why I'm here. Why did I pay $75 to come to this? So what I do is I start it off and I say, "Okay, coaches, what I want you to do is to raise your hand if you took high school algebra." So they all raise their hand.
God, I would have. That'd have been tough for me right there. Just the algebra part.
And they all raise their hand because you had to take high school algebra to graduate. So they all
right.
And then I said, "Okay, now raise your hand if you passed it." Well, I know that they've graduated, so they keep their hand. I said, "All right, keep your hand up. Now keep your hand up only if you can teach high school algebra." Now, as long as they don't have a math teacher in there, I'm okay.
I'm already getting anxiety thinking about that. I'd have been out of there.
And so they put their hands down. And so what I'm trying to tell them is just because you experienced something doesn't mean that you can teach. Now that I have your attention, let's get started. And so that's how I approach it with coaches. And most of them really are intrigued with the whole idea because no one really has taught them how to teach. They teach them how to, set screens and, how to do a pick and roll and how to run this offense and how to do presses. All that, they've been learning that since middle school. But when it comes to free throw shooting, no one's really has told them how to teach it and teach them how to teach it. And so most of them are very receptive.
So would you say that free throw shooting nowadays is an underestimated weapon that's not being utilized? It's not getting enough attention.
It doesn't get enough attention until the last 3, 4, 5 seconds of the game when the young man or young lady has to go up to the free throw line and they're sweating profusely.
Right.
And now it's got all the attention. But the thing about it is no one wants to teach what they don't know. And so the coaches don't spend a lot of time on it, not because they don't see that it's important, it's because they really don't know how to teach it. But once they've had an opportunity to work with me, they feel more comfortable, and they actually put it into their actual program, especially this summertime when working with the players.
I'm speaking from a fan's perspective because it's frustrating when we're watching games. I go with my buddies to watch games all the time, especially our U of H Cougars. Go Cougs. We're watching these games, and they come down to the last second. Or I'm sorry, let me back up. They lose by just a few points, say 3 or 4 points, but they miss 7 or 8 free throws during the game. There's the game right there.
There's the game.
There's the game right there. Not so much maybe, a missed 3 here, but free throws. And I don't think people appreciate how important the free throw is, and it's so obvious, but it's like people it's not registering, the way it really should, I think, especially with our younger generation today. Our players, right?
Well, one of the things that you mentioned, the younger generation, is this game called knockout. I tell coaches, especially middle school coaches, when they come to talk to me or work with me, don't allow them to play that. They say, well, it's good, it's entertaining, yes, but it teaches bad habits at the free throw line because a lot of them will get there, they'll rush their shot, right? Because all they want to do is get it off so they can miss it or knock the other player's ball off and then go and try to get enough so they can continue to stay in the game. And so what it teaches them bad habits at the free throw line, not respecting how important those shots are.
I watch kids play. I watch kids practice. And, what I'm seeing a lot of, well, I guess, let me say this. They watch a lot of TV. They watch a lot of TV. If Steph's making all these threes, Dame Lillard's making all these threes, why can't I do it? Well, it's great if you're making, I don't know, what's say maybe at minimum 4. I would say minimum 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, right?
Yeah, rather 30%.
34. But when you're making 1 out of 15 or 16 shots and they say, well, they're shooting threes, I'm just going to keep shooting threes or not making them. What I tell young kids, I say, go watch Michael Jordan videos on YouTube. Where did he make his money? When he wasn't dunking, he was making the shots maybe 5, 10, 15 feet out. That's where he's making most of his shots. And you don't really see that kind of a game anymore because, it's evolved. It's a 3-point game now. We all know that. Everybody's shooting threes. But can we teach our kids now, this generation, that it's okay to shoot from inside, closer in, higher percentage shots? Because it's all the dribble, not finishing, right? Because they see what they're seeing on TV and they're thinking they can do it, but they're not putting in that work to where, maybe I can make a team if I just shoot, 7, 8, 10 feet inside instead of threes all the time.
Well, again, they emulate what they see.
Yeah.
That's one. And the other thing, even free throws, there's no glamour in it.
There's no glamour.
There's no glamour in it, and that's how they see it. So that mid-range game that you're talking about, they don't see that as glamorous. However, more and more coaches at the high school level are realizing that when they're off on the 3, they need to have a mid-range game. And so they are incorporating that into their practices, whereas before it was all threes or dunks, and that was it.
At what age would you start trying to incorporate or and kind of instilling a mid-range game in kids? Because obviously, I guess what do we call it, little league basketball or even, I don't know if middle school is too early, but certainly in high school, I would say. By high school, you at least want to instill them, hey, let's try to develop more of a mid-range game.
Well, one of the things, if you remember, we used to play this thing called horse or out.
I still play horse.
You still play? You still
play horse. Oh, yeah.
And in middle school, that's the best time to make them mid-range only. Put chairs up, and you can't shoot behind. You have to shoot in front of the chairs.
Okay.
That forces them to start working on their mid-range game, and that's something that the middle school coaches should be working on. High school as well, to get them to do that, to work on their mid-range game, keeping them from running back to the three-point line and just chunking it up.
What's the biggest, when you watch middle school kids or high school kids play, what's the thing that most frustrates you when you watch them when they're shooting free throws? Is there any one particular thing that is kind of a common denominator that a lot of young kids do when they shoot free throws?
There's a couple of things. Bobby Knight, the great Bobby Knight, even though he was a little bit, but he's a great basketball mind.
Yeah, he's a little energetic.
Yeah, he was a little energetic. But Bobby Knight, one of the things when I was doing my studies, he always taught, look up at the rim, and once you look at the rim, don't look down again. And so one of the things that frustrates me with middle schoolers is they'll look at the rim, then they look down at the ball and they dribble, and then they look back up and then they'll shoot. Well, it actually takes almost about 2 seconds for your eyes to adjust to that distance with the rim. And so that's one of the things I said, I know you're gonna miss that because you gave yourself about a half a second to look, and then you chunked the ball up. So that's one of the things that frustrates me. The other thing is consistency. You'll see them; they'll shoot the basketball, and then if they miss, they move themselves around on the line, and then they'll come back and they'll shoot. Well, your foot's not in the same spot it was before. So they don't have consistency. It used to be, before we had lasers, it used to be when they started putting gyms together, there was a nail hole that was right there at the free throw line. And we were taught, put your foot in front of the nail hole every time, and so that way your foot would be in the middle of the rim before you shot.
So I know when I shoot free throws, my practice, first thing I do is I line myself up at the same spot all the time, and then I look down and get my feet set. Am I doing that right? Because I'm looking at the basket, I'm lining myself up at the line right where I need to be, and then I look down and make sure that my feet are where they need to be.
And then what do you do? Those two are great, but what is the next thing you do?
Then I take my 2 or 3 dribbles.
And where are you looking?
I do look down. I look down and I do look up, but I don't look back down again, though. I dribble, and I look up, but I don't look back down.
And how much time do you give yourself before you release the ball?
Not much. And I know when we talked first time, I told you about Mahmoud Abdul Rauf and what I learned from him, dribble, and then shoot. Don't really pause or think about it. Take your dribble, because I think that's where muscle memory comes in, too.
And I think everybody's different at that point.
Yeah. Now, I used to maybe do a little spin. I see MJ do a little spin or whatever, thinking about it. But then I was like, when I'm thinking too much about it, that's when I start missing.
And that goes into my second book when we start talking about the psyche of being at the free throw line. Okay. So it just depends on the player. Some players, they get nervous, and so the longer they're there, the more wobbly they become at the line. Other players and stuff, they need time to breathe, relax, and make that happen. I used to have something that in close ball games when I was coaching in college, when I had the player, they would come over, and the team would be talking about what they do, but I would actually talk to the player. And when the player came over, I would ask, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? And what? What's your favorite? I don't know. I kind of like sherbet. I like green sherbet. How about you? Yeah, I like green sherbet too, Coach. That's good. Guess what? Go make your free throws now. Just have to get their mind off of it and let them relax.
Okay.
Because that's half of it. They get all tense before they get ready to shoot, and that's not a good thing. And the other thing that teammates do is when they get in the huddle, man, you got to make this shot, man. We're here for you. Come on, you got to make this shot. So they're adding more pressure, but they think they're encouraging the player to do well, but you're adding more pressure on them. So I take them out of that, and I teach coaches that don't let your free throw shooter go into the pile. Don't let them sit on the bench. Have them stay out there with you or an assistant coach. They can still hear what's going on, but they don't need that added pressure.
Right.
And then try to get them to think about something other than the free throw.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how do you go about, so in that pressure situation then, so you teach your players, when they're in the games on the line, don't think about the free throw. Think of something other.
Take your mind somewhere else and relax. Just take your mind somewhere else.
I mean, how difficult is that
it
to
has
do?
It has to be taught. It has to be taught.
Okay.
And some players are ready for the moment. They live for that. Other players, they really don't want to be there.
Want nothing. Yeah.
They want nothing to do. They may be the best player as far as, shooting threes or your best rebounder, but if they get fouled and have to go to the line, oh my goodness, that's not where they want to be. And then you have other players, they look for it. Yeah, let me go to the line. It's just a part of their personality. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you're going to get to the free throw phobia or not, but that's another thing, is there's a natural fear for players to be there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that kind of makes me think about, if I'm looking at a pie chart and I'm looking at mental and physical attributes of a free throw, which is going to have the higher percentage of importance? What's going to have the priority, the mental or the technique side of it?
Well, when they're younger, it's all technique.
Okay.
That's where it is. It's the technique. By the time that they start to get in high school and college and pro, they have the technique down. So how are they missing free throws? That's the part that they start having with the mental.
Got it.
And that's where they struggle because everybody's looking at it. See, that's the only time, if you think about it, other than being a field goal kicker in a football game late in the game, when does all the pressure come on you to make something, do something? It's all of putting the ball between something. Between the circle, you got to drop the ball in there. Same thing with a field goal. And so there's a lot of pressure, and everybody's looking at you, and you get one of two things. Either A, everybody's real quiet. They've been screaming the whole time. Now all of a sudden the gym becomes completely quiet. Or the other thing is they've got the cowbells out, they're screaming at you, or you have that. So you get one or the other.
Right.
But you got a lot of pressure that's put on you to sink that free throw.
I can think about baseball too.
Oh.
Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs.
Oh my goodness.
And you're the one up to bat, with the runner in scoring position. You
got to swing.
Let me ask, so the one thing I've always kind of wondered, when it comes to does the size of your hands make a difference when you're shooting free throws? And I think about Shaq, because I always know Shaq wasn't the best free throw shooter, but when you look at the ball in his hand, it would be like the equivalent to us holding like a cantaloupe, or almost like a softball, right? Or if you ever tried to shoot a tennis ball, how difficult that is because it's so small. Does the size of your hands matter, or is that just another technique thing? What was Shaq's issue that you saw?
Shaq had a lot of problems.
Because I remember he would shoot like this, and he would take this hand off,
right, and then try to just
almost like shot put it.
Just kind of shot put it.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to work with Shaq. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I actually sent an email to TNT to have a free throw shooting contest with Shaq and Kenny the Jet Smith. Kenny's from North Carolina, North Carolina Tar Heels, a big
Houston Rocket World Champion.
Yes, I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
But I believe I could have, if we spotted a couple, I think I could get Shaq that he could beat Kenny the Jet Smith in a free throw shooting contest. But part of it is the ball should always be on your fingertips,
right,
and not on the palm. And that's where because they do have hands that are so big, it's just naturally for it to sit there. And so you have to teach post players that have big hands to actually start to what I call the claw,
right,
and make it into the claw of it. And part of the training behind doing that is taking cardboard and sticking cardboard in the palm of their hand and forcing them so they can't hit it there, so it actually sits up higher on the hand when you have them practice.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Remember, Yao Ming was such a great free throw shooter, but I mean, he had fundamentals, he had technique, he had everything. I think about Akeem Olajuwon, who was a terrible free throw shooter in his career. But then later on, I don't know what he did, but he became, I don't know, maybe like a 70-80% free throw shooter kind of towards the end of his career.
In his career.
So I'm not sure what he did differently, but
probably had somebody work with him on free throws.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he found that to be important to him and started to work on it.
Kind of found his stride.
Find his stride.
What do you think? You see a lot of players. They'll like we mentioned, they'll dribble. They'll take a pause. One notable one is Giannis, who takes forever. Frustratingly so, he takes forever. I mean, or Karl Malone would talk to the ball, and he'd spin it a few times. Do you encourage players to just kind of do kind of what works for them in routine, like the pause or talking the ball or anything like that, or you just teach them just to kind of eliminate, kind of trim the fat when it comes to all that extra stuff that they do? Or is that just part of people's routines?
Sometimes it's just part of their routine. Now, if they're just a really poor free throw shooter, we start from the bottom, and then I just rebuild it all together. But if it's just a tweak here and there, I allow them to have it. Someone, like you say, spin the ball, someone talk to the ball, someone take it and hit it against their forehead and bring it back, whatever makes them comfortable. And a lot of it is just getting them to relax.
Right.
And so when they relax, then they feel they shoot better. And that's in anything that we do. When people are comfortable, they're more successful.
When you work with a player for the first time, what's your approach? Like, do you do kind of like a diagnostic? Do you watch them shoot on their own first and kind of go from there? Or, when a player comes to you, what's your first approach? What are you looking at the first thing?
With technology now, a lot of the times it's done through video. So I don't have to actually go and work with the player. So I tell them I want 3 second videos of them shooting, and I want it to be 7 to 8 feet away so I can see their feet, their posture, what they do. I want another one right off of their shoulder, and then I want another one straight on.
Okay.
And so based off of that, that kind of gives me an idea of what we're doing. But I usually, and I also like to see the free throw shooter, when I'm working in person, shoot with their eyes closed.
Okay, well, what's the reason behind that?
Because I want to see how their body naturally moves.
Okay.
I want to see their natural movement. So if they are shooting a free throw and they are blindfolded or they just have their eyes closed, and after it's over, if they twist their right shoulder into it, then that's going to be part of it as well. And so there's a natural twist for them to go to the right or the left with their body, because when their eyes are closed, this becomes a natural relaxation and your body's going to turn. So case in point, if I have you standing straight on and I have your body say twist to the right, and I said, okay, we're going to stand there until you relax. When you relax, your body's naturally going to come back to the straight. So basically we're fighting against our natural body. And so that may be just foot placement, adjusting the feet, getting them, or dropping the elbow back or what have you. So sometimes we'll have them do that. Just shoot with their eyes closed.
You see a lot of players who have a routine that they've had at the line for so long. How difficult is it to break their routine? I guess if you see a need for them to develop a whole new routine, do you get pushback from that? To say, Coach, this is what I've been doing for so long. I mean, do you ever get pushback? I mean, how difficult is it to get a player to buy into a new routine if needed?
It really depends on the player, because if I'm going to get to that point, and I'll just bring them over and we'll just sit down and have a conversation. And basically, I tell you, it's an addiction. You're addicted to that shot, and the shot's not doing you well.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to break your addiction. Now the question is, do you want to do it, or do you not? And if you want to be successful, I can help you get there. If not, you're gonna continue to do what you do, because I'm not gonna waste my time if you're not willing to listen to me. And again, that's but I know what you're saying, Coach, but I've been doing this, since I was in middle school. So basically what you're telling me, you've been missing since you were in middle school.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so you're not telling me.
Like, it may feel comfortable.
Right.
Like shooting, 15 threes feels comfortable, but I'm not making them. It just feels comfortable. But it's not working.
It's not working. And so and then a lot of times too is when I will videotape them, and then we come back and sit down and I say, look at yourself. Look at your body. Look at your feet. And all those types of things. And then we'll come back and we'll make and then okay, now we've made 2. Well, I don't make. That's all right. And now we've got to make 4.
Gotcha.
And the other thing is encouragement. Players, as we are for this human beings, we strive on praise.
Right.
I'm like, say the shooter's name Jonathan. That was a great shot. You missed it, but your form was excellent. Really? Yes. And then he'll shoot it again, and he'll keep that same form. And then eventually, and I said, okay, now you're going to change the trajectory of the shot. Raise your elbow up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so just continue to teach them about it. And the next thing you know, I usually can get them to 70, 80%.
So you're kind of giving the mental and the technique side simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
Absolutely. There's an article on your website that I read that you talked about how important it is for young players to attend basketball camps regularly. Talk about that.
I'm only one set of eyes, and I have an opinion as to how I see a player. But I encourage them to go to play with players of different levels. When you go to camp, you're going to have kids that are real good, kids that are better than you, or kids that aren't as good as you. And the other thing is coaches, I don't have a big ego.
Right.
And so for coaches, I want them to say, you need to do this, or you can change that, or I see you need to work on this. And a lot of times it's the same stuff that I've said, or it may be something that I didn't see. And they come back, Coach, they said that my left hand, layup needs to be this, or I need to work on shooting, come off the dribble off the left side, or my free throws need, you know what? Let's take a look at that. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, it is something because I'll say, you know what, I didn't see that. You can't see everything. You cannot see everything. That's why you need, another set of eyes. And so that's why I like them to go to camp. Go to camp, play against other competition, see what other coaches see if they're seeing some of the same stuff that I'm seeing, or did they see something I didn't.
Mm. One thing, you talked about shooting off the dribble. Either way, I know my strongest side is when I'm right-handed, but when I go left, dribble left and pull up, that's my strong side. When I dribble right and shoot, that's kind of my weaker, because I'm not as consistent, right? But I notice what I do, though, when I do dribble left and I shoot, I always find my body drifting with the shot. So my shot, of course, is going, to the left in the direct. My momentum is taking my shot the direction I'm floating around. But and so I'm learning. So for me, it's tough to just jump straight up. So if I'm dribbling left and I'm just trying to pull straight, that's what I'm trying to work on, is pulling straight up, because that off balance, I end up just falling away. My shot goes awry and everything. So that's something I've always wanted to know is how do you teach shooting off the dribble? Because I know you do jump shooting as well. So what's your advice when you're shooting off the dribble going either way and maintaining your balance when you shoot?
The first thing that we got to find out, Tommy, maybe you know this and maybe you don't, your eye dominancy. Are you right eye dominant or left eye dominant?
Gosh, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest with you.
Well, there's a little trick that we can do right here in the studio if you want to find out.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. What I want you to do is I want you to look at my finger. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I want you to take and make yourself a triangle, just like that. Now I want you to take the triangle and put it just like that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, not so far. Bring it out. Bring it straight out. All the way out. All the way out. All the way out. All right. Now I want you to take my finger, and I want you to take my finger, put it in the middle of your triangle. Is it in the middle of your triangle?
It's in the middle.
All right. Now on the count of 3, I want you to pull back as fast as you can. That your hands are going to be on top of your forehead, and that you're looking looking through that little triangle with one eye. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Pull it back. All right.
Well, there we go. Now I can kind of see it with my left.
So you kind of went to both sides.
Yeah, I kind of went both.
You kind of went both ways, but I think you look like you're kind of on your right side.
Yeah.
All right. So you're right eye dominant. Now, based off that, you can put your hands. Okay. Now, based off that right eye dominant, your shooting has to be, because your body's always going to go with your right eye dominant, especially when you come off screens. When you come off screen, your right eye or your dominant eye is always going to lead through the screen. And so that's why some kids shoot better on the right side and they shoot on the left. But it starts with the eye dominancy. And when I started telling coaches that, they were like, I never thought about it. No one ever told me about that.
There's actually a whole science behind it.
The whole science behind it. But you got to find out what the eye dominancy is.
Coach, is there a legitimate reason why a player should ever airball a free throw? Because I see NBA players airballing free throws. Why? How does an NBA player airball a free throw?
Well, mainly because their elbow's up too high, so the trajectory is going up like that and bringing it straight back down.
Is there anything having to do with their height too? The way they shoot it? I don't know.
I don't know about the height as much because I haven't had that problem with working with post players. Mainly, but it's the elbow for the player, and then a lot of it's nerves. They're so nervous they don't want to slam it off the backboard. They don't want to hit the back of the rim, and so they what they call a short arm. They don't follow through with their normal shot, and they short arm, and then they fall short anyway.
But I like it's funny. I read an article. God, I remember an article I read years ago. It's funny you mentioned about short arming. Going back to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who was Chris Jackson at the time, played at LSU legend, played for the Denver Nuggets starting out. And I think they were playing the Rockets. This is how good of a memory I have. This was like in the probably early mid-'90s. I saw this article, and they were talking to Calvin Murphy. And Calvin Murphy was watching him, as they're talking, watching him warm up, watching Chris Jackson warm up. And if you've ever seen Chris Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, please watch videos. I mean, he just does not miss. He's one of the best shooters I've ever seen. Steph Curry before Steph Curry, as they always say. But Calvin Murphy said, look at him. He's just flicking the ball. He's not extending. So, of course, what's going to happen when you're flicking the ball is going to come up short. Mm-hmm. It's like you said, right? But I thought that was a really interesting observation that he noticed that from one of the best shooters I've ever seen. But you just that one little, and it's true. When you don't extend, and I find myself, sometimes I do, I kind of flick it. I'm like, oh, God. It either went the wrong way or it went straight into the rim, but I'm not getting the extension. It makes total sense. Mm-hmm. So same with the free throw.
Same with the free throw.
You can do it with the free throw too. The same mistake.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Also something I found really interesting on your website. Another article. There was a really interesting study about who are the better free throw shooters, boys versus girls. And yeah, I guess there was no real evidence found of either way, but I just thought that the study was interesting. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. Having been a coach for both male and females, I've always, wanted to know, because when you start talking about sports dominancy, but when it comes to the free throw shooting, it doesn't make a difference whether you're 70 years old or, you're 17 years old. You can still make free throws. So I was like, well, is there any difference with, girls versus boys? And actually, it's not. They're both strong enough to get it 50. The rack is still 10 feet up and 15 feet away. Mm-hmm. So they both are strong enough to get there. They both, based off personality, some have problems with, fear, and others, do not.
Right.
And so based off of that, so there really is no difference between a good free throw shooter that's female and a good free throw shooter that's male, which is great. And I really think, to be honest with you, I think it would be great if that's what the NBA All-Star game, that's what they had them go after. Now, you listen to me, NBA.
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
have that, then you could actually have 4 or 5, All-Stars from the WNBA going against 4 or 5 All-Stars from the NBA, and it's going to be a fair match.
Everybody wants to see Caitlin Clark, of course, to do that.
Yep.
And whoever else. Speaking of her, what makes her such a great shooter? I mean, she obviously can shoot from anywhere like Steph. She shoot literally from anywhere she can make it. What makes her such a great and consistent shooter that you've seen?
Her form.
Her form.
Yep, her form.
What was about her form?
Well, like we talked about, reaching out and snapping her wrist, understanding trajectory. Her and Steph both have a true understanding of trajectory, understanding that you don't want to shoot the ball straight. You want to put some trajectory on it. And the spin. If you notice, both from two, put a lot of spin on the ball.
Yeah.
Yes, and so because actually the rotation starts to, like with a tire, 1 starts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that helps you with your distance.
Gotcha. Okay. God, I'd love to see that. I'm with you. I'd love to see that. I think, going to the NBA All-Star Weekend is kind of tough to watch these days.
Yeah.
you know. But I think they should have the girls, the WNBA players, come in. Like I said, I think Steph versus Caitlin Clark 3-point shootout would be something, or just something to kind of get the fans back interested in that. Let's get into your actual program here. Let's get into the actual program. You have, of course, 3 different training types. You got the individual player, you got the team, and also the coaches. So talk a little bit about kind of what's incorporated in each.
Well, the individual is when I'm just working with one particular player. Like we said, they're having difficulty. Either the parent or the coach will have the player sent to me and said, this is what they're having problems with. Can you help them? That kind of thing. Then we have actual team where the coach will come to, or athletic director will get in contact with me and say, look, as a team, we're struggling. Can you, come and work with the team? Because all of them, for whatever reason, and a lot of that's mental block. As a team, when all of them, it's like catching the flu. When one gets the flu, the next one, and they all getting sick. The same concept. And so we got to go back and figure out where we went wrong with that. A lot of times it's positioning of the feet. It's a lot of them is position of the feet, and where the kids that come and they turn sideways and shoot free throws, I'm totally.
Well, they're actually turning like this.
Yeah, it's completely sideways and try to shoot stuff. I'm completely against that.
So they're like this, but then the elbow is.
Yes, right in front. But it only works for so long because as they start to become more fatigued, as I said, the body will start to shift, and then the shot's going to be off. But sometimes it's just that, and some of it's just technique of just working with the team and helping the coach with their team, and then lastly working with the coach. That's where I actually think I'd give the most back to the sport. One day I'm going to pass away from this great earth, and when I do. I've got a lot of knowledge that I have obtained that a lot of people do not have when it comes to free throw. So what can I give to the game? And so working with coaches, especially young coaches, and teaching them and allowing them to invest that into their players, I think is a gift that the Lord has blessed me with.
Which is out of the 3? Which is the toughest to work with out of the 3? The individual, the team, or the coaches? Well, I'll say tough, but most challenging. Let's at least use that word, challenging. At times.
It used to be the coaches, the egos, breaking them down to get them to understand.
Yeah, who's this guy coming in?
Right,
telling me how to
telling
coach.
me how to do this. I've been coaching, all that. So that used to be. That's not the case anymore. They reach me out. They call me. They like having the conversation. The team is usually because now they have a group of 12 of them that they already have bonded. And again, who am I to come in? To start working, with the this player or telling that player, but it's usually, even though it's a team, I try to make it competitive, and work with it, and so that usually helps, having the competition. And what I do for the team is we set it up where I'll split half and half, have one on one side of the court and the other one at the other side of the court, and then I'll say go, and so they have to sprint and they do a half court suicide. And then they have to go to the line, and then they have to shoot, and they have 3 seconds. And so they go against each other to shoot and make with form and to see how well they do. And so that makes it exciting. And then what I do is I say, okay, you did well. So I say, raise your hand if your last name starts between A and E, and they raise. And so I switch them, and then we go at it again. And so that makes it exciting. So going in with a team, usually a player, like I say, except for if I have to completely break the shot down, they're usually receptive. But as a team, that's a little challenging.
So when you work with a team, that's interesting. When you work with the team, how much time do you spend, like, with one individual team? Is it like a certain number, certain number of sessions? Is it multiple sessions?
It'll be multiple.
On average?
It's mostly multiple sessions. Okay. And the coach will eventually start to see improvements in the games. And so normally the coach usually will sign his team up for about 10 different sessions where I come and I will work with them. Because when you talk about the tennis ball, we have drills where they all get down and we all work with tennis ball, working on form. And so they put the tennis ball on the elbow and then they got to catch it.
Oh, okay.
And so getting them to get used to the breaking motion.
Interesting.
And so as a team, Jonathan, you dropped it. Let's go. Let's try it again. And you dropped it. Oh, let's try it again. And they say, I'm having problems with it. And then they kind of go over to the side, and I work with them, on it. And I say, what happens is you got to take the ball and now go get it.
Right.
Take the ball. Well, what they do is have the ball up here. It's rolling down, so it's already, you're not going to catch it in time. So this drills like that, working with them. But usually, little by little, and then the players themselves will start to build confidence so they can, coach is coming. Coach Coleman's coming. Oh, yeah, the free throw doctor, blah, blah, blah. And they get all excited. And then, again, I have that little song that they have found, or they found on my website, so they'll start playing and they dance to it. And so it's the coaches always say, I really appreciate the team. They lift the team spirit up, especially when they're getting, beat. Let's say they're only 3-20 or whatever the case may be, or they're struggling. They need some, midway through the season, they're probably not going to go farther in the tournament. So they need something to help. And so that brings me in, but also gets them ready for next year.
So you're building that relationship with those players in that team. So when you come, they're ready, they're motivated, because they know they're going to be encouraged. It's okay to make mistakes, but they know that, you've got their back, their support, because they may not be getting that from the coach.
May not be
getting that from the coach.
Yeah.
And that's a little spark that they need.
And it just depends on the personality of the coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that may be it as well. But, yes, the team is usually about 10 lessons. Because you come in one time and you do it, it's not going to do anything. We have to form good habits.
Right.
And that's what we do.
So something else I also noticed in your program, you have various, memberships, right? Can you talk about those different memberships? Those there were little tiers that I saw, membership tiers.
Oh, those are being part of the club.
Oh, the club. Okay, we'll talk about that then.
Yeah, that's the charity stripe.
The charity. Okay,
the charity stripe, and so there's different levels: the gold, the premium, and so forth.
Oh, okay.
And so that when you sign up, you can get a T-shirt, and you get so many free lessons. And then you sign up at a higher rate, then you actually will get an autographed picture, and I'll come to your school.
Gotcha.
And so it just kind of depends on where they are. So that doesn't really have to do with the free throw as much as it has to do with being part of the club.
Part of the club.
Trying to encourage them to be part of the club.
So speaking of visiting schools, so you have what you call house calls.
House calls.
Okay. So you go visit schools, or do you ever go to, when you meet is that just encompass going to schools, or individual players, you go to where they're at, or is that just, going to the school visits?
The school visits, I got started. Let me just kind of give you how I got started. I got started with that where there was a coach, college coach, and he reached out to me. This is the very first time I even did it. And he reached out to me and he said, Coach, I need you to come kind of work with my coaches. On free throw, we don't really know. We're struggling as a team and so forth. And I said, okay. And he goes, but I just want one thing before we bring you in. And I was like, well, we don't want nobody to know. And I said, you don't want anybody to know. And he said, don't tell anybody you work with me. You work with my team. I don't want anybody to know, or my coaches. I said, okay. So the anonymity I have kept. Mm-hmm. So, but I've worked SEC, ACC, all of them. I've worked with all the teams or the coaches. But when they bring me in or have me come in, a lot of it's just getting to know the coaches and let them know that I'm not here to step on their toes or make them feel uncomfortable. The high school, same thing. I'm not here to coach your team or take over your team or make you feel uncomfortable. I'm a tool. And so just like any other tool that you have, like if you're doing, the shooting machine, right. That's a tool to help them work on, their shots, or jump rope or whatever, all these different, I'm just another tool that comes in and works with you on free throw shooting.
Gotcha. Is it easy to overthink a free throw? Do you see players just overthinking it by just thinking about too much?
It's funny you hit that nail on the head, because that is some of the problems when they come up where mentally they overthink it. Yeah. They are so, I can't miss. I just can't miss. And then they miss. Oh, darn. And I see some of them where they get to the point where they just rev themselves up, tremendously. Here's a case in point. I'll show you something else as another trick.
Sure.
So when you have a player that is working on free throws, and the coach would say, they shoot great, in practice, but when they get in the game, they have problems. And so I said, well, let me watch him shoot or watch her shoot. Well, one of the things, if you take something, let's just say I'm taking this and then I'm holding a basketball.
Right.
All right. And I'm coming off. And so watch what happens to the phone as I go. So as the breathing,
it's moving with you.
It moves with them. So depending on when they release the basketball, it's going to change their shot. And so just teaching the player to calm down, stop your breathing, shoot the shot. Calm down, stop your breathing, shoot the shot. Just something as simple as that.
What's crazy, this whole conversation has been so eye-opening, and, it just really makes you think just how simple the act of the free throw looks, but it's so complex behind the scenes. And I never really, really gave it that much thought, but, I know people watching this are going to be like, wow, there really is a lot that goes into that simple shot.
And the importance of it. And that's where everyone, we're talking about March Madness is getting ready to start. There are going to be fans that are, literally on the edge of their seat,
right,
hoping that their player can make these free throws at the end of the game so they can continue to dance in March Madness. And they don't realize how much work went into trying to prepare that player
right
for that. That's
a great segue. I want to respect your time. So speaking of March Madness, I want to kind of end with a little discussion about that. Who, in your estimation, is the best free throw shooting team in the tournament right now? Do you have any idea? Is it kind of, at least that you've seen, or is that kind of a tough one to answer?
I think it's a tough one to answer because some of them, if you look at their free throw percentage, they're up in the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. But if you look at their free throw percentage in the last 3 games or so, a lot of their free throw percentage has dropped into the 70s.
That pressure cooker.
And that pressure cooker, exactly. And so if you, to say who's the best right now, I don't know. Michigan State's real good.
Right.
They're a real good free throw shooting team. But it all comes down to that pressure at the end because there's nothing like, we talk about Friday Night Lights, there's nothing like March Madness lights.
Right.
When you start having that song played and you get in front of the audience and everybody, not just the people that came to the game, but the people that don't even know anything about your school but have that your team on the bracket sheet, they're rooting for you to make that free throw too. That's a lot of pressure.
How about my Cougars' chances? What do you think? Is this their best look at winning right now?
I think Sampson has them in perfect position. Obviously, injuries play a role, and as long as they stay healthy, I think it's going to be tough to knock them out. I think it's going to be tough.
I'm hoping it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough to knock them out.
I hope it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. Duke's another one. That's another one that's tough.
That's another one, yeah. That's someone who's going to give people trouble with Flag.
That Flag, if his ankle's good, he's good. Now, again, I'm a Carolina fan, and so, but once Carolina gets knocked out, I'm still rooting for the ACC, and so hopefully Clemson or Duke can continue to carry the torch. Unless Carolina can just continue to dance, you just never know. So we'll see. But that Auburn. Another tough one. And then you got to Izzo always has Michigan State ready.
Always, he has them right there.
Always has them ready to play.
Always has them.
Always. And so that's going to be another one. And they're a great free throw shooting team.
Were you shocked to see both Alabama and Auburn lose this past weekend?
Yes and no. Okay. From a coaching standpoint, not that they tried to lose, but from a coaching standpoint, they are probably sitting better coming off a loss going into the NCAA tournament than they are coming off a win. But to both of them to lose, I was like, wow, what's going on? What Kool-Aid are they drinking?
Right. I think Alabama just got blown out.
Exactly.
They just got blown out of the gym.
Yeah. So from a coaching standpoint, that's really it's not a great thing, but it's a good thing.
Right.
Where when they practice, we can't play like we just got through playing. It really he can grab their attention and their focus. Whereas they're just winning everything, it's hard to get them to focus.
That's why they call it March Madness.
March Madness.
Coach, this has been an incredible pleasure. It's been eye-opening, and I hope a lot of parents watch this, hope a lot of young players watch this. Again, like the point I made earlier, the most simple shot, probably next to a layup, in basketball is also probably the most complex, one of the most complex. Let's talk about real quick before we go, how can people find you? How can they get in contact with you if they want to?
Well, my number, I think, is going to be put on the screen, so they can certainly call that.
Yeah, for at least our audio listeners, go ahead and give them that number and your website.
Well, the website is freethrowdoctor.com, and the phone number, I'd have to pull it up off the thing because I was talking to Quincy a minute ago.
In fact, you know what? I've got the website pulled up, so why don't I pull it up real quick? So if you want to get in contact with Coach Coleman, call him at 346-353-6778. And again, you can visit his website at freethrowdoctor.com. Coach, what a pleasure. What an eye-opening experience. And I know we're going to be back again at some point to have another round because let's tell people real quick, just give them a glimpse at what our next conversation is going to be about.
Next conversation is going to be about politics.
Get ready.
Get ready.
Get ready. Get ready. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Tommy Denos podcast. Again, my special thanks to my guy Quincy for putting together a wonderful production as always. My lovely friend, Miss Dana, who I work with, who got me in contact with Coach Coleman. Coach Coleman, I think we're going to be friends. I think we're going to stay in touch. I know we're going to be able to talk a lot more basketball. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
And again, special thank you to you, sir.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Remember, as always, you want something, go get it. That'll do it. God bless.
Yo, what up? It's the Free Throw Doctor. Welcome to the gym where the players top notch. Step onto the court, you already know what's up. Yeah, we keep it going cause the energy's non-stop. Of course, you can sense the vibe when we play. We shoot free throw.